So last week I did a couple of really big weddings. Great days, great locations, great weather, great couples. It was just great. So what I'd like to do for you guys today is just take you through my own personal kind of creative process, how I choose locations, the lighting, setup, and just about everything else that's involved. It's not going to take too long, probably only about 5 minutes, but I think it's really kind of useful information, especially if you're starting out and you're unsure of how to get these type of pictures. Obviously you're still going to have to do a lot of the work yourself, but this is how I do it, because I don't think just giving you the camera settings for a shot like this, I just don't think that's enough information. How do you get to that point? Well, that's what we're going to look at. The first thing I look for when I get to a wedding venue is somewhere I can potentially take the bride and groom off later that evening. I'm looking for something that's a little bit unique. I'm looking for lighting basically, or potential lighting. So when I arrived at this venue called Gosfield Hall, I was up in the bridal suite. I said all my good mornings to the bride, make sure she's happy, etc, etc. And I look out the window and this is the scene that I see. It's basically just some suppliers setting up a Mr. and Mrs. sign in front of the water fountains. No big deal, right? But if you look past that and how the lighting will look in the evening, you start to build up a bigger picture. If I put a flash behind that water fountain, it's just going to light the water up and it's going to look really pretty. And then with the Mr. and Mrs. sign, the ambient orangey kind of glow or the warm tones is going to be perfect. It's going to make a really nice setting. All I need to do then is ask the bride and groom to come out later in the evening when it's a lot darker. I'm good, I've got my setting, I've got my location, it's going to make a brilliant picture. So you've got to think about when you want to do these shots. If you try and do it when it's too bright, it's just not going to have the same feeling to the picture. Sure, I can take the bride and groom out there and get some shots with the Mr. and Mrs. sign at any point of the day. And they're going to love those pictures, they're going to be really good, but I want to do something a little bit more unique for the couple. So this is why I aim to take them out later in the evening. The ambient glow, as I just said, is just going to set the picture and I'm going to get the shot that I really want to capture for my couple. Next, you're going to have to really think about when you're bringing the bride and groom out, because you don't want them hanging around for 5 minutes while you're setting lighting up. They're just going to get bored really, and they're going to want to bugger off back to the actual party and just leave you alone there. So this is exactly what I do. I will go out prior to the actual taking the shot. I will set my flashes up, I'll take a couple of test shots, and then once I'm happy with that, I'm simply going to bring the bride and groom out. They're going to be out there for a few minutes and they're going to go back inside, have the party. I've got my shots. It's as simple as that, guys. It's just basically thinking ahead on how you're going to do everything. Bring the bride and groom out at the last possible moment. They're going to appreciate it a lot more. They're not going to be standing around for ages, possibly getting cold, maybe getting wet, who knows, depending on the weather situations. The next thing is choosing how you want to light the bride and groom. Now, there's a whole host of ways you can do this. You can use flash, you can use like a GL-1, which I personally did in this particular instance. You can use a torch, you can use an ice light, you can just, there's lots and lots and lots of different options. I went with a GL-1 because it's like a spotlight. You can use a flash with maybe, I don't know, a snoot or something like that, and it'd have a very similar effect. The reason why I went with, like, you might say a GL-1's like a torch, is because I could see exactly how the picture was framing up in front of me. I had the camera in live view mode, so just on the back of the screen, because I wanted to see how the camera saw basically the setting, I guess. Because when you look for a DSLR, I was using a 5D Mark IV at this point, you're just seeing what is basically in front of you with the human eye. I want to see how the camera sees it. So flip it into live view mode, or if you, better still, if you've got a mirrorless camera, you'll see how the camera sees it. This is really, really important because it speeds up your workflow and you don't make that many mistakes either. It's so, so important. I highly recommend it. Like I say, have your camera in live view mode, see what the camera sees. It's as simple as that, really. I know you guys basically want to know what camera settings I used. Well, it's these. I could have used a faster lens, I could have used a slower shutter speed to let more light in, etc, etc. I was doing everything handheld. I didn't have a tripod with me at this point in time, so That's why I chose an 80th of a second, because I could handhold that and still get a really nice sharp picture. But as I say, it's more about setting the shot up and getting everything right than worrying about the actual camera settings. Camera settings are almost the last thing I'm thinking about when I'm setting a shot up. I want to set it up, make sure it looks good, and then I'm going to worry about the camera settings. Like I say, put into live view, you can alter them as you need. Just remember to have your shutter speed reasonably fast if you're hand and holding stuff, especially if you're not using flash. Flash will freeze your subjects, so that's really nice and easy. So I'm sure you want to see the before and the after. Well, here you go. All I did in the edit is simply just brighten it up a little bit, alter the colours ever so slightly. That's it really. There was nothing else to do because I used that live view technique. It's brilliant. I can't recommend this enough. I really hope this short tutorial has helped you understand my creative process. Everybody's going to work different and there's nothing wrong with that. But this is just my simple way of doing things. It works for me personally. You're going to find your own style, and you know, when you do, brilliant, stick to it. But again, just to recap, when I arrive at a venue, I'm looking for a location where I can take the bride and groom in the evening. I'm looking for ambient light or potential ambient light. Later on in the day, I'll set lights up, take some quick test shots, bring the bride and groom out, turn everything into live view. Brilliant if you've got a mirrorless camera, because it basically is like live view. Take the shot, let the bride and groom go back into the party. Jobs are good and I've got the shots I want. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Your camera gear, basically secondary. It's more about setting the location than anything else. Anyways, enough of that. Catch you next time.